Hello, one more time. I am Abel Foundation's Medicine Makers. Wherever your destination is a career in medicine, we're going to help you get there. I'm your host, Cornelius Conway. We had a crazy, great season last year. We talked a little bit about it the last episode with my mother, the CEO, the executive producer of this show. But we're going to touch on a little bit more in-depth topics this season. I got a guest here. She's one of the first students in the program, actually, in the I Am Abel Foundation. So I'm going to let her introduce herself. This is Diana Guzman. How you doing?
Hi everyone, I'm Diana. I'm a 2016 mentee, and I remember I started this program when I was a junior in high school. My counselor let me know about it, and right away I was like, I think this is for me, and I applied. I got into the program, and I was paired up one-to-one with a mentor who I've been keeping in touch with ever since. We have a great bond and connection. She lets me shadow her, and you just get so much hands-on experience in this program. And I'm so happy that I also got CPR certified and then pursued to become a CPR instructor. I think it's been a wonderful experience to give back to my community and teach those who want to learn how to save lives, especially in a city like Chicago, where unfortunately there is a lot of deaths.
Right, a lot of violence in the city. Mm-hmm. That's the point of the program. Actually, this program was founded because of the death of my cousin, the loss of my cousin, right? And this occurred on the south side of Chicago. Now, granted, this program is a pipeline program for kids to go into medical school. But what we believe in the I Am Abel Foundation is that we need to start producing the students and eventually the doctors who are going to take care of these kids, our family members, right? Because we're not in this alone. We're a part of the community. We need to go back to the community and then serve the community. Mm-hmm. That's the biggest thing about the I Am Abel Foundation, right? It's not just producing doctors for the sake of producing doctors. There's no point in that, right? You want doctors who have a passion and a care for the community. And some of the programs we have some great programs. Actually, this year we just had the medical conference, which took place at Rush University. We're going to do it again next year. Well, the venue will be announced whenever it's announced, but it's going to be a great conference. It's going to be more medical schools there. We're going to have some nursing programs, dental tracks, pharmacy tracks. So we're going to hit it on all cylinders. We also have the gala every year, which is one of our big fundraising events. Great opportunity to meet people, network as well. That's huge. And what we have coming up this August is 3-on-3 basketball. 3-on-3 basketball is something that my mom came up with. I thought was a good opportunity to, bring the kids who might not be interested in medicine. Because for example, I wasn't interested in medicine at all. I didn't know what I wanted to be. Didn't want to go to school, right? But what I did want to do is do sports, right? Because what you see is what you want to be, right? So the whole point of this 3-on-3 basketball program is that we're going to start having men in white coats, black male doctors, who are also, they also are athletic, right? And they're going to start playing basketball with the kids. And it's an opportunity for these kids to be able to see someone that looks like them and say, hey, he's professional in what he does. Maybe I could be a professional like that,
right?
So that's the big thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's huge. And what I love about the foundation is that these mentors that we're paired up with are people of color. For example, my mentor is Dr. Salvador Nushig, and she's Latina. So when I see someone like that being a physician, it makes me think that I can do it as well, the stereotype is white, male, tall physician. We need to get over that. A doctor could be any color.
That's a fact. And another crazy, it's not crazy, but it's interesting because a lot of people aren't going there. We have a trip to Cuba this January. So it's a medical trip, not a mission trip, but a medical trip to actually explore the medical schools and the policies that they have in Cuba. So in Cuba, that's actually one of the countries that have I think is the highest percentage of doctors per capita. Very limited in their resources, but they're still able to do amazing things. Primary care is their focus. And that's an interesting trip. You can check it out online. But back to the 3-on-3 basketball. If you know anyone that's interested in that, if anybody from 5th to 8th grade, anybody wants to volunteer, donate, please go to the website, contact us. All the information is right there. And to touch on it again, 14% of 14% of the American population are blacks, but only 2% of all doctors are black males. 2%. That's a drop in the bucket, right? That's not even talking about African American males. That's included all black males, Caribbean, Africans, immigrants. So African American males, I'm sure, is a much smaller number. So this is the reason why we're doing these programs, to kind of just introduce this track, this lifestyle, this career choice to the those who wouldn't have been exposed to it otherwise, right? So we have the Cuban trip come up in January. You have the 100 Hard Initiative, which we're going to talk about today. It's a huge initiative. I've been a CPR instructor for almost 4 years, almost going on 5 years. It's big. We've been all over the place, from south side, north side, west side, deep west side, all over the place, suburbs, Indiana. So we volunteer everywhere. We do free CPR classes for the elderly, and also for, I think, anyone under the age of 24. Free CPR classes, and it's big. And we have an initiative called Save a Life, Don't Take One, and we're basically, telling these kids, hey, you can also be proactive. We understand there's a lot of gun violence here, and they just keep hearing that, but what can they do about it, right? Obviously, you want to be safe, but we also want to teach these kids and give them a skill that they can utilize out in the streets, okay? So that's the whole point of the initiative. And we also we might be having some MCAT classes coming up in July. MCAT classes in July and August. So that's what we're doing. Here's the website and the information right there. If you need to contact us, amabel.org, ABEL, and our email is info@iamabel.org. All right. So, topic of the day, CPR. All right. Another CPR instructor here. We have a class coming up July 20th. That's actually closed. We have a lot of people that was applying to that.
Yeah. The reason it's closed is because it's going to be our first class in Spanish.
Right.
So a lot of people signed up.
Yeah, and that's huge. And we're one of the only, if not the only, organization in Chicago doing CPR classes in Spanish. It's not done. If it is done, it's all online. So we're giving them a personal, face-to-face, one-on-one CPR class in Spanish. And we're going to start expanding. We're going to start expanding all over the city. So keep an eye out on us. It's July 20th is our first class. And it's going to be amazing. We also have an English class actually that same day. But yeah, it's amazing. So today, CPR. What's so important about CPR and why we need to learn it?
I mean, obviously to save a life. I think it's important for everyone to know it.
Yeah, it is. And the thing is about CPR, it's a skill that shouldn't be dependent upon how much money you have. Everyone should have that skill, right? CPR is one of those things that people, they gloss over. They might have to take it for work. But we really need to understand that this is a life-saving skill. That's not only dedicated to those who are paramedics, EMTs, and first responders, but to the lay people. Actually, a stat is that 90% of people that have heart attacks outside of the hospital actually die. But those who come into contact with someone who's CPR trained and they perform CPR on those people, 45% of those people actually survive. That's a huge increase of survival. So we have to start understanding the science behind it, get people involved, and not have it just dependent upon if they can afford a class or not. But CPR in Spanish, we all know that there's a large Spanish-speaking population in Chicago. Don't you think it's very important for those people to have that skill?
Exactly, and the fact that we're probably the only organization that is offering this class in the city, that's pretty sad. And well, I'm grateful that the Am Abel Foundation is able to make a difference.
Yeah, it's huge. And we're trying to expand. That's why we're certifying hundreds of people every year. We're making more instructors, and it's like a domino effect. And that's the great thing about it. So hopefully you guys can come support. If you're not certified, come get certified. But today we're going to actually give you guys some tips on how to save a life, right? And we're going to get into the science of some of these words like heart attack and stroke. What are they? What can be done to prevent them? Can they be prevented, right? So we're going to talk about all of that. So first things first, let's talk about a stroke. What is a stroke? Well, a stroke is known as a brain attack, right? It's like the heart attack of the brain, right? So anytime there's a lack of blood flow to the brain, lack of oxygen to the brain, that's a stroke. Strokes are super serious. We all know that if you destroy nerves, They're not meiotic. They won't grow back, right? A nerve that's destroyed will not grow back. So when we're talking about strokes, we're talking about cranial nerves, optic nerves, olfactory nerves, trochlear, abducens, all 12 of them, right? When you have a stroke, any of these nerves can be damaged. They can affect your sight, your hearing, your balance, right? So it's so important when we're dealing with a person that has a stroke is to pay attention to a few things. And we're going to talk about those things. There's an acronym. You want to explain the acronym to them?
Yeah. So we use the acronym FAST, which stands for Face, Arm, Speech, and Time. So first thing you want to look at is a person's face. If it looks uneven, you can even ask them, can you smile for me? And then if you see that there's a little droop in their smile, then that's a potential sign for a stroke. An arm. Does their arm kind of wobble a little? Does it look odd? Speech. Do you think their speech sounds weird? Do they have slurred speech? You can ask them to say a simple sentence for you. And timing. This is really important because with the timing, you are able to let the paramedic know exactly when you believe the stroke was happening so that they can be quick to inject.
It's a plasminogen blaster, and it's very important because it can make the difference of long-lasting effects that can't be reversed, right? Because we talked about a lack of oxygen to the brain. What happens with that is that those parts of the brain dies. If the part of the cerebellum dies, then they start losing balance, right? If optic nerves die, they start losing sight. So it's so important to have this oxygen, right? This blood flow to get back to the brain as soon as possible. So time is very important. And what you should remember, if you think someone's having a stroke, a lot of times they'll be like, nah, I think I'm all right, right? It's the human in us, right? We think we're okay most of the time. Some people they always think something's bad is going to happen to them, right? But always play it safe. If you think someone's having a stroke, go through that FAST acronym. Check their face. Check their arms. Check their speech. Check the time. And the most important thing with the time is that when you start seeing those symptoms, right, of sorts, you want to write the time down, right, and give it to that paramedic, give it to that first responder, because they're going to relay that information. So please pay attention to it. Don't let people diagnose themselves. Always play it safe. And I would say most of the time, it's better to call the paramedics than not, right? Mm-hmm. So, a heart attack. I'll explain what a heart attack is.
Heart attack is...
It's the same as a stroke.
Yeah.
It's just a lack of blood flow to the heart. So, they call the stroke the heart attack of the brain. A heart attack is just whenever there's a lack of blood, lack of oxygen going to the heart. So, I would say men, primarily suffer from this, but women can definitely suffer from heart attacks. It's a misrepresentation in science and in medicine that women can't have heart attacks. Women do have heart attacks. They can present differently. Now, for men, a lot of times they have sweating. They have some type of chest pain. It's kind of tight. They might even have pain radiating up to their head, right? These are symptoms of a heart attack. For a woman, they can actually start having some pain in their back, right? They can present in the back. So I would say that, in any case, someone's having issues, tight chest, they're showing these signs and symptoms of sweating, diaphoresis, it's better to call 911, activate EMS, and just let them come, and then they can diagnose them on the scene. One of the things people do during a heart attack is that they supply that person with baby aspirin. And what the baby aspirin does is it's a coat. It's more or less a coat that lets those blood cells ease past each other, right? When there's a clot that's occurring. So, aspirin, 3 to 4 baby aspirin. I think each baby aspirin is 81 milligrams. So that's what's recommended by the American Heart Association and Red Cross and all the guidelines in CPR. Heart attacks can affect different demographics differently. We all know that certain groups are more predisposed to certain diseases. A lot of African Americans can get sickle cell anemia. It's just common, right? One of the things that we need to understand is that there's factors that we can control, and then there's factors we can't control. I think that's the biggest thing, because a lot of African Americans and Latinos, we suffer from high blood pressure, And that's something we can try to manage with medicine, but it's just genetic. But some things that we can control are the foods we eat, right? Mm-hmm. And I think the foods are culturally, related to, how we grew up, or our ancestors ate. But they can have adverse effects on our body. High carbs, things that have a lot of trans fats with the high carbs. It's a lose-lose. Lots of sugars. These create fat cells, right? And these fat cells accumulate, and you have plaque building up in the arteries, and boom, heart attack, or boom, stroke, right? You also have people who smoke. They tend to smoke a lot, right? Mm-hmm. Those people are they're more at risk of having a heart attack or a stroke. Now, let me say this. Everyone who smokes and everyone who eats a lot of carbs and sugar, right, aren't going to have a heart attack, right? I'm not saying that. But what you need to take into account is if you have an African-American background or African background or Sub-Saharan African background, Latino, which can be Native American DNA, right? You are more at risk of having a heart attack already. So what that means is that you have to take care of yourself, get checked up, go to the doctor, see what your cholesterol is, all these things, right? Watch your diet, exercise. If you're smoking, stop smoking, all right? Get help with that, right? These are things that we need to do as a community mm-hmm. to save ourselves, because it's better to do prevention, right, than have then try to get it on the back end, right, when you're getting chest compressions. Now, we will teach you chest compressions. This is what we're going to talk about right now. But it's so important to make sure that you're doing the right things and, take care of yourself. Now, we're going to talk about some CPR. So CPR, we have our mannequin right here, right? It's our mannequin. Mm-hmm. And the most important thing about CPR is acting quick. Now, we always have a lot of people who have fears there's 5 fears. Talk about a couple of them. A lot of people aren't confident in their skills, so they're like, hey, I don't want to touch them, right? That's bystander effect. You see someone else around them, you say, well, they'll get to them. But a lot of times they don't. That's the bystander effect. So you got to take action quickly, right? But you have to be smart about it, too. So, single person CPR, right?
Okay. We're going to fake a scene. For example, you're walking in a park and you see someone laying on the floor. What do? Step 1, you want to check the scene, obviously. Because if the scene isn't safe, we don't want to make another...
have another accident.
Exactly.
Right.
So if the scene is safe, then you want to tap the person on the shoulders and shout, hey, sir or woman, are you okay? Can you hear me? And then initially you want to, if there's someone around, for example, Corey, you want to be specific and say, hey, you in the white shirt, call 911. And someone else, if there is someone else, to get an AED.
Right.
And come back.
Right. And here's the AED. And like she said, you always want to be very specific on who you're calling. Hey, you, right? Because they might, oh, he wasn't talking to me. Mm-hmm. They're talking to him, right? So always be specific who you're talking to. If you know them by name, then call them by name. Say, hey, you, call 911, right? If you're by yourself, obviously pull out your phone. Hope you have a phone. It's 2019. Call 911 and get EMS there, and then start compressions. Now, want to talk about the compressions?
Yeah. So you want to do the compressions right in between the nipples and right down in the sternum. Right. You want to interlock your fingers and lock your hands out straight with your palm of your hands. You want to, it's a little difficult to do in this table exactly, but you want to hover over so that your the weight here is the weight, like your shoulders. You want to hover over like this. Just imagine my hands are straight. And you want to go down 2 inches for 30 compressions. And Corey likes this one song for the raid. Dun,
staying alive, dun. And right, and it's 100 beats per minute, right? Mm-hmm. And that's very hard to figure out what's 100 beats per minute, right? How you quantify that? Sing that song in your head, you'll be on beat. Please be on beat, and you'll be all right. After those 30 compressions, you always want to make sure you lift the chin back, right? You tilt the chin back. You tilt the chin back to open up the airways, correct? Now, I'll say this about mouth-to-mouth CPR. A lot of people probably looking at this like, I'm not touching no one's mouth with my mouth. I don't know what that is, right? And that's okay, right? Because what's been proven scientifically, or at least in vitro, is that you can actually perform hands-only compression CPR and it's just as effective as hands only or hands and mouth to mouth CPR. So if you're not comfortable, if you don't have a one-way mouth VAS shield, a lot of people who don't have that, we're going to start distributing those as well. That's something you can do, hands only CPR.
And so it's 30 compressions and 2 rescue breaths. When you give the rescue breaths, you want to tilt the head backward and hold the hand so it's stabled. It's really important, especially in babies, to make sure that you are holding their head firmly and secure. You don't want the baby's head to be wobbling around everywhere.
Right. And for babies, let's explain how we do CPR for babies. You want to go through that?
Yeah, so it's basically very similar, except you're going to use your 2 most dominant fingers right between the nipples, down the sternum. Again, 30 compressions,
right,
and 2 rescue breaths. The rescue breaths, you don't want a whole lot of air. You just want about a mouthful of air, just kind of like a puff. And you don't want to go 2.5 inches deep, because you might damage something.
Right, usually 1/3 of the depth of the baby.
About 1.5.
Right. So that's what you're doing. It's a little bit different. And for obviously when you're doing a child or an infant, you want to make sure that you get the parents' consent. You don't want to go up, start performing CPR, random babies and children. They might call the police on you. You might get locked up for that. But hey, if no one's around, perform CPR, because at that point you're the only person saving that kid, saving that baby, right? So let's try to be heroes out here. Personally, I worked as a CNA. I had to do it in my time working. It's necessary. It does happen. I never thought I would have to do it. Never thought I would have to use it. Obviously, in the medical field, people do it all the time. But hey, when it touches you, it'll touch you. So always be prepared. And you know what? And the good thing about CPR and the laws is that the Good Samaritan Act protects you. Because a lot of people have fears of getting sued, which is a necessary fear, because there's a lot of people getting sued out here, right? But the Good Samaritan Act actually protects you. Now, you can't step on the man's chest and call it CPR. But if the man dies, they're already legally, at least medically dead, right? When no blood flow is going to the heart, they're medically dead, right? Brain dead, medically dead, right? So this is important. Understand that you can't get sued. You're protected. And just act within your own ability, right? Work at the top of your license. Work at the top of your skill set, and you'll be fine. Now, we're going to go through some choking real quick. We only have a minute. You can kind of talk to them how the...
Yeah. So for this one, I'll actually be showing choking in Spanish. Entonces, si ves a un bebé que se está ahogando, tal vez comida le entró, vas a recoger la cabeza así y tomar el pie, un pie enfrente, con 2 dedos en medio de las tetas. Vas a hacerle así, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, y lo vas a torcer a la otra pierna y pegarle en la espalda 5 veces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Y seguir haciéndolo hasta que salga lo que estaba atorado.
So I hope that was very informative for you guys. We're going to be here every Tuesday, same time, 6:30 Central Time. Please check us out online. We have a lot of good information coming up. Look us up. Email us if you have any questions. We have a lot of great programming. A lot of great program coming up this year. Great students living their dreams, working hard, and great mentors and people part of the program who are helping us do it. So please take the time out, look us up, and give a hand if you can.
Thank you.